Today is Friday, October 18th. What to know about the death of Hamas's leader and why some officials are now hopeful it could lead to a ceasefire deal. Also an update from the campaign trail, from a charity dinner to the billionaires backing each candidate. Plus, why teen tobacco use is at a 25-year low. What else popular weight loss drugs may be able to treat. And the newest winter weather predictions for the country. Those stories and even more news to know today coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. We start today with a major update in the Middle East. The leader of Hamas is dead. Yahya Sinwar is said to have played a central role in planning the October 7th surprise attack on Israel last year, the deadliest attack on the country in its history, and the assault that led to the war in Gaza. The New York Times reports he was known for his brutality and elusiveness. And while he had been Israel's #1 target since the start of the war, it was actually a unit of trainee squad commanders that unexpectedly encountered him and killed him, not a carefully planned mission based on intelligence. Regardless, the death of Sinwar is a huge blow to Hamas, which has now lost most of its military and political leadership. But perhaps this also means a ceasefire and hostage release deal is on the horizon. Reports say Sinwar was a big reason there had not been negotiations for the last 2 months, and Israeli officials told Axios other Hamas leaders might be more ready to surrender as part of a deal to end the war. The leader's death also gives Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu an opportunity to declare victory. For now, though, Netanyahu says the war is not over, as he seems to be turning his attention to the 101 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. Netanyahu said once hostages are returned, that will bring the end of the war closer. Already, though, President Biden called the killing of the Hamas leader a good day for the world. Both he and White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the death is an opportunity for a ceasefire and hostage release deal, though other officials aren't so sure. So, to be continued. An independent panel investigating the first assassination attempt on former President Trump back in July is now calling for a complete overhaul of the Secret Service. President Biden had requested this bipartisan independent panel after the rally shooting. And while the report thanked agents who risked their lives to protect the former president, it also found the Secret Service suffers from what it called deep flaws that allowed the shooting to happen, citing both several mistakes on that particular day as well as systemic issues. It called on the agency to undergo fundamental reform to properly protect top government officials around the world, including new leadership. While the Secret Service director at the time already stepped down, the acting director said in a statement he would carefully review the report and recommendations, adding that the agency has already begun improving security. The panel dedicated its work to the man who was shot and killed at the rally, as well as 2 others who were injured, along with all of their families. Former President Donald Trump spoke at the Al Smith charity dinner in New York last night, while Vice President Kamala Harris sent in a recorded video. The event is a white-tie, bipartisan dinner to raise money for Catholic charities, and presidential candidates typically attend every 4 years and trade jokes ahead of Election Day. Trump was there with former First Lady Melania Trump, which was notable since she's been absent from most public appearances with the former president recently. Well, during his speech last night, Trump mocked Harris for not being at the event in person and made a joke that criticized her intelligence. He got a mixed reception, as some jokes landed and some did not. As for Harris, in her pre-recorded video, she chided Trump for election denialism and for attacking the city of Detroit while speaking in Detroit. Instead of going to the event, Harris focused on campaigning in a battleground state. She made another trip to Wisconsin, where she criticized Trump for saying January 6, 2021, when the Capitol riot happened, was a mostly peaceful day of love. Also of note, both candidates had billionaires backing them yesterday. Harris had Mark Cuban's support. He criticized Trump's tariffs proposals, saying Trump does not understand his own plan and that it would cause prices for consumers to go up. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, the world's richest person who has donated millions of dollars to the Trump campaign, held a rally outside of Philadelphia. He said he's politically active now because he thinks the future of America is at stake. He also told the crowd to vote and get their friends and family to vote and to vote early. Already, though, it seems many Americans in battleground states are making their voices heard ASAP. Georgia had record turnout when their early voting started earlier this week, and now the battleground state of North Carolina reports strong turnout on day 1 as well. And that was even true in mountainous areas that are still dealing with Hurricane Helene's devastating impact. The Biden administration is wiping out another $4.5 billion of student debt for people in public service. Firefighters, nurses, teachers, and social workers are some of the 60,000 workers who will now see their student loans disappear. Notices will go out in the next few weeks to those whose loans will be cleared. With these loan cancellations and others, more than 1 million people have now gotten student debt relief from the Biden administration. Though the program Biden used to clear the debt actually started during the George W. Bush administration back in 2007. It lets certain nonprofit and government employees erase their loans after making monthly payments for a decade. But before Biden took office, only 7,000 people had benefited from it. The Education Department said years of mismanagement meant thousands of people continued making payments on loans that should have been forgiven. So the department streamlined the system, and now $73 billion in debt has been wiped out because of the program. Though President Biden's other plans to clear even more student debt have been blocked by various courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court. All right, we have more news for you still ahead. But first, thanks to our sponsor. It's almost that time of year where your health insurance plan is going to be top of mind. The open enrollment period is when you'll be signing up for next year's coverage. And whether you're switching plans or not, you may need to look for a new doctor or specialist. And when I need to do that, I try to make the process as easy as possible for myself. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and much more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, who are located nearby, who are a good fit for any medical need you may have, and who are highly rated by verified patients. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. Teen tobacco use is at its lowest rate in 25 years. The latest report from the CDC found only 8% of American teenagers said they used tobacco in the last 30 days. And that breaks down to about 1 in 20 middle school students and 1 in 10 high schoolers. Health officials pointed to a drop in e-cigarette use as the biggest reason for the overall decline, since e-cigarettes are the most popular form of tobacco among teens these days. And even though nicotine pouches are becoming more trendy, those have not had a big enough impact to lead to an increase in overall tobacco use. Still, advocates urge the government to do more to stop kids from using tobacco. They want to see a federal ban on menthol products and all flavored tobacco. A new study found some of the hottest drugs on the market for diabetes and weight loss could also help people dealing with addiction. The study found opioid addicts who were on Ozempic or similar medications had a 40% lower chance of overdosing. And people with alcohol use disorder who were on the drugs had a 50% lower rate of alcohol intoxication compared to people not on the drugs. This was a pretty robust study, too. It looked at about 10 years of data on 500,000 patients across over 100 health systems in the country. Researchers said the findings could have huge implications for addiction treatment. But they also warned that more research is needed. Even though these kinds of drugs have been around for several years, they're still relatively new. So scientists need time to study long-term effects, especially in terms of cancer risk and how they affect the brain. Still, the findings back up what many patients have said anecdotally about their experience on the drugs, and it could mean there will be an effective addiction treatment doctors can rely on in the future. To be continued. The annual winter weather report from the federal agency NOAA is offering a sneak peek into what to expect in the coming months. And it says states like Washington and Oregon in the Northwest should prepare for colder than usual temperatures with more precipitation. It's also supposed to be wetter than usual in the Great Lakes region. On the other hand, most of the East Coast and southern parts of the U.S. can expect hotter, drier weather than usual during December, January, and February. Weather, though, of course, is difficult to predict. And experts at the Climate Prediction Center point out this year is especially hard to get right because of a weather pattern known as La Niña. La Niña affects different regions in unique ways, but when it's weak, like this year, it makes weather patterns more unpredictable than usual. So stay tuned. The largest streaming service in the world is still growing. Netflix added 5 million subscribers in the third quarter of this year, beating Wall Street expectations and putting the streamer at more than 280 million global subscribers. It was also Netflix's most profitable 3 months ever. The jump happened in part because of Netflix's turn to ad-supported subscription offerings, which more closely resembles traditional TV. Netflix said ad-supported subscriptions accounted for half of all new subscribers. For a lower price than ad-free subscription, people can access Netflix content, but they do then have to watch advertisements. It's a major shift away from Netflix's original model, on-demand viewing without commercials. The packages rolled out in 2022, the same time Netflix started cracking down on password sharing. Netflix expects even more growth from continued investments in advertising and gaming. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a quick break. Before my kiddo started preschool, I wanted to start giving him a vitamin to help support his immunity, energy, brain function, mood, his developing body, and more. And after doing a lot of my own research, I chose Hiya. And to be clear, I chose Hiya even before I knew they would sponsor this podcast. More than a year later, I continue to love how Hiya is formulated with the help of nutritional experts and is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals. And what was important to me was that the vitamin was not just a bunch of sugar, because some children's vitamins out there are basically candy in disguise. Instead, Hiya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. And yet, my 3-year-old loves taking his Hiya Children's Vitamin and Kids Probiotic each morning. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. When you think of the Navy, you don't normally think of animal rescues, but the British Royal Navy found itself called into action when 6 loggerhead sea turtles washed up on English shores, cold and confused. The turtles normally live in warm water habitats, but they were blown thousands of miles off course, probably because of a storm. When rescuers in England found them, they were in a state of shock, stunned by the cold waters. Zoo workers took them in, and after a few days, they were able to nurse them back to strength. But England was no place to live long-term. That's when the Navy stepped up. The Royal Navy patrol ship HMS Medway was planning to head to the Caribbean, and it offered to take an additional 6 reptilian passengers. As the Medway passed the Azores in the Atlantic, they dropped off the turtles in warm water more suitable to them. Scientists with the Navy said one of the highlights of life at sea is interacting with marine life. So anytime they can lend a helping hand to fellow ocean lovers, they do it. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode. We're talking about the threats election workers have faced in recent years and what they're now expecting and preparing for ahead of another contentious election day. Then we'll be back to catch you up with another news roundup on Monday. For now, have a great weekend.